Try googling highest grossing films and go to Wikipedia. It's really interesting to take a look at the movies that appear on the list. Just consider the first 20 titles. Only 4 of them are not action movies or an action subgenre. As always, the boundaries between genre and subgenre are very thin, but this list offers a pretty wide array of possible combinations. We have canonical action like Skyfall and Furious 7, action-adventure, Jurassic World, fantasy movies, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, Avatar and The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. Then there's sci-fi with the 2 Star Wars and the 2 Transformers. There even is a Cloak and Dagger movie. Seriously, are we still buying tickets for Pirates of the Caribbean? And last but not least, the superhero films. The Avengers, Avengers Age of Ultron, Iron Man 3, Captain America Civil War, and The Dark Knight Rises. Some of these movies have been critically acclaimed. Others, not so much. But the important thing is that these movies are watched by a staggeringly high number of people. This fact alone makes them worthy of study. There is no other genre that has been so universally liked for so long, and I think it's extremely interesting to see what kind of movies have stimulated the minds of so many viewers. Of course, it's impossible to study action movies as a whole, so I decided to focus on one particular aspect: how women are portrayed in the action genre.
I'll do my best.
The representation of female characters in action movies has proved difficult over the years, to say the least. There are very few female-driven action movies to begin with, and even fewer still where female characters have actual agency over the movie's plot. Sadly, it's still very common for women to be the passive party of the story, reenacting a 21st century version of the Fair Maiden. The characters who fall in this category are objectified women whose sole purpose is that of being saved and rescued, often becoming the love interest of the male lead. They frequently are poorly written and far from developed, since their role serves no function other than being the non-active object of someone else's actions. They are rewards or prizes for the male's heroic deeds. The best example, the Wachowskis' Jupiter Ascending. This movie's protagonist is either cleaning toilets, falling, or being rescued by Channing Tatum with Spock ears.
Total bullshit.
You'll agree that the Fair Maiden is not really worth discussing. When women do appear in the action genre as carriers of an active role, either as protagonists or antagonists, they can fall into an array of possible templates with remarkably little variation. There are a certain number of tropes that I will explore in this video. The YA heroine, the sexualized fighter, and the leader. The YA heroine is a fairly recent addition to the list of possible female action characters. A sort of predecessor to this category can be found in Hermione Granger from the Harry Potter franchise, but it's with Katniss Everdeen, the protagonist of the Hunger Games series, that the YA heroine has really taken off.
I volunteer as tribute!
In The Hunger Games, the heroine is played by Jennifer Lawrence, and she has since become the standard trope for the genre. The YA heroine is often very virginal and unexperienced both in the facts of life and in fighting. She has to work her way through an uncommonly violent world, using logic and trickery rather than pure strength, which she sometimes lacks. The YA heroine is beautiful, even though she never seems to notice the effect that her beauty has on her male counterparts.
Because I'm saving myself for someone else.
Is my torment.
She's skinny and with at least one skill that sets her apart from everybody else. Sadly, whereas The Hunger Games is a great example of a strong, empowered female character who thinks for herself, speaks her mind, and doesn't spend all the time fussing about boys, other YA films have not really bothered to create a compelling heroine.
If you ever say anything like that again, I'll kill you.
But what I want to point out is how widespread these tropes are, regardless of the few movies that actually manage to surpass them. The biggest, most hard-to-die trope for women in action remains the sexualized fighter, the most common kind of female lead. The main feature of this heroine is her bendy and graceful, ballet-like fighting technique. These female warriors' fight choreographies are designed to put the actresses' bodies on full display. They are molded to show off legs, flexibility, and beauty. And it's no coincidence that these characters almost always wear tight leather suits. These women are hyper-feminine and they often use their beauty as a weapon.
Sorry to keep letting you down.
The leader is the main trope for female villains. She's arguably the only female character who's allowed to be old because most of her actions consist of imparting orders. She's usually ice cold, severe, and regal. But the situation for female leads in action movies is just a side problem to the biggest drama that is female characters in movies, period. Which brings me to... Let's talk about the Bechdel test. In 1985, Alison Bechdel created a very simple rule with 3 criteria. A movie passes it if it has at least 2 named women who talk to each other about something other than a man. Simple, right? Well, you'd be surprised to know how many movies fail this simple test. To stick to the 16 highest grossing action movies we were talking about earlier, only 11 of them passed the test, and believe me, it's already a miracle to see such a high number here. Passing the test is not a guarantee of the overall quality of the movie, but the fact that such a test exists serves to underline a big, awful tendency. Women's roles are, pretty often, pretty bad. As I have said before, there are lots of exceptions, even in the action genre, with strong, well-written women protagonists. Filmmakers have proved that there can be a more mature approach towards the characterization of women in action. So please, before doing anything, go watch how George Miller did it and learn from him.